Good day, my name is Ntlhaile, student number 4743810, and I'll be presenting my reflections on my personal experiences during the course of the strategic management module, focusing on how I dealt with resistance to change and how it affected or shaped my learning and future readiness on my career. So let's get into it. So I'll be focusing specifically on a specific assignment we have, a group assignment we had, which is a case project on an actual business project, on an actual business, right, radar. So, which my topic is uncooperative group members during a case project. So, right, so let's get into it. Part one, my experience, right? So when I think back to my experience in the strategic management module, one of the most challenging and transformative moments came during our group case project, right? Our task was to analyze a real company's strategic challenges and recommend solutions using the frameworks we had learned in class, right? So on paper, it sounded straightforward. Divide the work, collaborate, compile our findings, but in reality, really, it turned out into one of the toughest experiences I've ever had when dealing with groups. At first, our group seemed very enthusiastic, right? And we agreed to meet regularly, split the project into 5 main criteria or sections, right? And however, as the weeks went by, I noticed that only 2 of us were consistently showing up and delivering on time. The other 3 group members started making excuses. One said they were too busy with other modules, another said they didn't understand the task at hand, and one simply stopped responding to our messages in the group chats. The problem quickly became just about incomplete work, right? The problem quickly became not just about incomplete tasks or work, but also about resistance to participation, right? And it felt as if they had already decided that the project wasn't worth the effort. You can imagine. This was frustrating because, unlike an individual assignment, a group case project depends heavily on collaboration and shared efforts, right? At first, I tried to ignore the issues, thinking maybe they would come to their senses when the deadline is closer. But no, but as submission week approached, I realized that our group marks and our credibility were at stake, right? That's when I decided to take more initiative. And the initiatives I took, I created a shared timeline, a specific deadlines for each section, and scheduled virtual meetings to check progress. To make things easier, I simplified the instructions for each task, linked examples from our lectures, and even offered to review their drafts. I was hoping that reducing confusion would encourage participation, but no, unfortunately, that didn't completely solve the problem. Some members still didn't engage. That's when I started reflecting on my own approach. Maybe people resist not because they are lazy, but because they feel disconnected, anxious, or uncertain about their contribution. So instead of confronting them directly, I reached out individually to understand what was holding them back, right? So with this information I gathered from them, I restructured our approach by assigning roles based on everyone's strength and more. We'll cover more as we go into this, the my reflection and the so what, right? So this so what of my reflection. So this experience was more than a project. It was a deep learning moment about resistance, leadership, and adaptability. At first, I viewed the uncooperative behavior as personal. I felt they were disrespecting my efforts or the group's efforts. But through reflection, I realized that people resist tasks or change for different reasons, right? Fear, number one is fear of failure. Number two is lack of clarity. Number three is lack of motivation. And understanding this made me grow, not just as a student, but as a person. So I will structure I will then structure my reflection on the followings. Number one is emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So I learned to manage my emotions instead of letting frustrations take control. Instead of reacting angrily to missing work, I practiced patience and tried to understand others' point of views or perspectives. This emotional awareness helped me to stay calm and constructive. I realized that if I lost my temper, I would push the group further apart, which wouldn't solve anything. So through this, I developed stronger emotional intelligence, particularly in reading the mood of the group and knowing when to push and when to support. And then number two, on my reflections, I noted problem solving and adaptability. When faced with a team that wasn't working well, I had to think creatively. Simply demanding participation didn't work. Instead, I designed, or rather redesigned, our approach by breaking down complex tasks and matching roles to people's strengths. I found that participation slowly increased. This taught me adaptability, the ability to change strategies when one approach fails, which is really important. And then number three on this is communication and conflict management. This experience pushed me to improve my communication skills, really. I learned that clarity is crucial, not just in what you say, but how you say it, instead of sending long, emotional messages about deadlines, right? I started writing clear, polite, and motivational reminders. This tone kept conversation professional and encouraging, preventing conflict and maintaining team morale, right? And then lastly, on my reflection, I noted learning from feedback and observation, of which I also learned from the two group members who were consistent. They often reminded me not to take everything personally and to focus on completing the task rather than fixing everyone's attitude, which is really important, which is the really important aspect I learned in this case project. That feedback helped me balance between being a leader and a team player, right? So we get on to our last part, which is my learnings for career development. So this experience prepared me for real workplace dynamics more than more than any textbook could, rather. In a professional environment, I'll encounter similar situations: colleagues who resist change, team members who underperform, our projects that depend, or projects that defend, or the project that depends on collaborative work, rather, right? So also here I have many sections of what I want to note or to bring about to light. And number one is applying leadership and collaboration in the workplace. In my future career, I plan to apply these lessons by leading with clarity, empathy, and accountability. I've learned that effective leadership is not about doing all the work yourself, but it's about creating conditions that allow others to succeed. For instance, if I were leading a team at work and notice resistance to a new system or policy, I would start by communicating why the change matters and how it can benefit and how it will benefit the team. Number two is managing resistance in professional teams, right? Professionally, I will approach resistance as a signal rather than a setback. Instead of labeling colleagues as uncooperative, I will analyze what's driving their behavior. Maybe the workload is unclear or people feel their ideas aren't being heard. I will apply emotional intelligence to identify these issues clearly and resolve them constructively. And then my closing reflection, right? So in closing, facing group members who did not want to participate was not just an academic challenge. It was a real life leadership lesson. I moved from frustration and disappointment to self-awareness, adaptability, and resilience. I learned that teamwork is not about everyone being equal in effort, but about finding balance, supporting others, and focusing on the bigger goal, right? So through this experience, I developed key professional skills: problem-solving skills, teamwork skills, communication skills, and emotional intelligence skills that will serve me in my future role or in my career at a later stage. And that was my reflection on the strategic management module, and specifically on how I dealt with resistance to change. I thank you so much. Have a good day. Thank you.